Welcome back to Hasbro's Hide. A couple of viewers of the channel had reminded me I had not yet checked the maximum overall length of our cartridge in our BCA barrel. And so what that has to do with, we want to know from the base of the case to where the ogive touches the rifling. And so that's the maximum length that cartridge could be loaded and still fire. Now you don't ever want to fire at that length, so what we'll end up doing is when we determine that number, we'll load some rounds a few thousandths of an inch back so they have absolute minimum jump. But we need to know what is the maximum jump right now, because we've been loading near maximum cartridge length, but there's a good gap between that and where it's going to hit the rifling, what we call jump. And so we'll do this, I'll show you this, and we'll get our measurements, and then we're going to make some rounds up and go hit the range and see if it makes anything better in this rifle. All right, we've retrieved our bullet from the bore, and let's check its overall length here. So we'll do the same thing we've done before. Drop this on here, get it snug, and see what we get. .723. And so that's really good. That repeats back to our first one. So 1.723 then is our overall length then from the back of the case to the ogive where we touch the lands. And so we'll check that against what we had been seating to and see what our jump is. Alright, so by checking our numbers, we have 95 thousandths of an inch jump. Now, how do we get that? Well, we start with our maximum cartridge overall length from the cartridge base to where we touch the lands on the ogive, and that was our 1.723 number. And I'll show these numbers up here in the corner for you. So how do we calculate what the jump is? Well, we were loading to magazine length, or just a couple thousandths off magazine length of 2.260. That gave us a cartridge base to ogive of 1.628. Now that would have been the measurement from the base to the ogive, or right where we hit our diameter transition here to the barrel. And so that was 1.628. But the problem is the chamber is 95 thousandths farther away. And so what we're going to do as a test is we're going to go ahead and seat to 5 thousandths off the land. So we're going to move this bullet up from where we had been 90 thousandths. So what does that mean? Well, it means it will no longer sit in our magazine. So we're going to have to hand feed these, which is just fine. We'll do that as a test. And then we also have to do another test. When we're done seating it, we have to make sure we have enough of that base in the neck to hold it in position and not allow the bullet to cant or be off when we seat the bullet and lightly crimp around the neck. So let's go ahead and adjust this. I've run our seating die up, and so should be well shy of that number, and we are because we didn't touch. So we'll come down again. Right there, we just touched, and let's check our cartridge-based ogive here. Again, looking for 1.718. So we're at 1.738. So we have 20 thousandths to go. Now this has this micrometer system on it, and so we should be able to go, that's 10, and we'll go 15 just so we sneak up on it and see how close then that we get. Alright, so they're at 1.720 and a half, so we need 2.5 thousandths. So we'll go 2 there, and let's see what we get. There we go. 1.718 and a half. So we'll call that good. So that gives us about 5 thousandths jump to our lands. Now this round, if you notice, has no primer or powder. So what we're going to do is take this round. I'm going to put a light crimp on it just so it doesn't move. And then we're going to load it into our gun. Now what we'll do is take marker, and we're going to mark all over the bullet. And then we'll load it into our gun, single feed it, and then see if we actually hit the lands or not. And we're going to drop that bolt. And, you know, not maybe all the way back, but we'll drop enough it definitely will seat the round to make sure everything's home and proper, and then we'll see if we hit or not. Just as a double check, because I don't want to load up a bunch of these and then come find out, well, we can't even chamber them safely or properly. So we'll do that, and then we'll if that's okay, we'll check this in just a minute, and then we'll load some other rounds. Okay, so I thought I'd do another check before we put it into the rifle, just to make sure. I put a very light crimp on it, just to make sure it doesn't move when we chamber and things like that. But I wanted to show you the difference then. So this bullet is way far out now. It's 5 thousandths off the land. And so it won't, obviously, as I said, it won't fit in the magazine, but we'll hand load these and we'll check them out. But I want to make sure we still had enough bullet to hold in the neck, and we do, because the base, before we hit the taper of the boat tail, is just below the neck, where the shoulder and the neck meet. And so we should be good, but I wanted to double check that, because if we were sitting up here, we'd have all kinds of problems potentially, and we might not ever get the bullet fully lined up. And so we should be good there. So let's go ahead, we're going to put some marker onto the top of this bullet, and then we'll chamber it in our rifle and do our check. All right, we've marked our bullet, and so let's check and seat it, get it in here carefully, and seat it, and then see how close we are to hitting the land. So let's go ahead and drop the bolt. Make sure it's all the way forward. There we go. Lock it forward, and now let's pull it back out. Now this will be stiff because that round is now forced into that chamber. All right, and we'll find our round here on the floor, and we'll check it out. So, in fact, if you look, if you can see that well in the camera, we have not hit the lands. There's no mark around the diameter of our bullet. And so we'll just do another quick double check on overall length, and if that's okay, then we'll load up 10 rounds, 2 different powder levels, and then see what it does for our accuracy. Just so you can see, in doing it that way, we did not change the overall length. So that's good, and it means we also did not hit the lands and drive the bullet backwards. So we should have right about 5 thousandths of an inch jump, cartridge-based ogive. So when we load these additional rounds, we'll measure every single one to make sure we don't get closer to those lands than 5 thousandths of an inch, and then we'll hand feed them at the range and see what happens. All right, before we go to the range, I thought I'd show you our loads. All of these now have been seated to a cartridge-based ogive of 1.718, plus or minus about 1/1000th of an inch. That seems to be what the bullets are varying on their base to the ogive. And so that keeps us, at least 4 thousandths, 3.5, 4 thousandths away from hitting the lands, but then should give us, about a 90 thousandths less jump than what we were getting with a maximum magazine length. So of course, these all have to be fed by hand, and so I'm going to regret that, I'm sure, when I go to feed all these in by hand to do our testing and validation at the range. But nonetheless, that's what I've done. And so what I've done is, since we're going to be starting with a couple known loads, I started with varmint again, and these of course are the Hornady 123 ELDs, and so we're starting with 27.7. I've done 10 rounds of that, so 5 to warm it up, 5 to see how it groups. And then I've done 5 loads of 28, and then I've done 10 more rounds now of 28.5 and 29. And the reason I did these is these are this is 0.2 off of Sierra's maximum recommendation for 123 grain bullet and varmint, but these are probably closer to what we need to be shooting anyway, because we moved this bullet out, so we increased our case capacity a lot, and I suspect these won't shoot as well as they did. We'll see. And so this should be closer to filling the case. There's still room. These were not compressed. Even at 29 grains, with this bullet moved all the way out, they were not compressed, because Sierra's data was for 2.260, and so we still have quite a bit of case capacity. But again, not wanting to push the pressures crazy and just check. We just want to see if we get to the lands, does it, shrink our groups? And if it does, that's fine. It tells us there's a chamber problem on the BCA barrels, which other people have said there might be. So we're going to check and see how we do. So let's go to the range. I went from the range and I thought I'd show you the results here. And I'm going to show the stats and things that you might be interested in. I might do it just after the end of this screen. But I wanted to show you the results, though, if you look. So we had sort of mediocre groups again. Nothing really great to be proud of or write home about. So, you know, as expected, when we had the bullet pushed out, our case capacity got larger and the amount of powder versus that case capacity got smaller. And so our groups opened up. Generally, you get more accurate as you get closer to filling those cases up. And you can start to see then, well, you know, maybe some hope here, but we get some horizontal stringing and then down there. So, you know, again, if 1.4 inches or about there, 1.5 inches, 1.4 odd MOA is for you, well, then you can hand feed this barrel in 6.5 Grendel. I'm not going to do it. This is more of an experiment. Just how, you know, how much would the jump reduction help? And it really, you know, it helps a little, but in this case, just not so much. Certainly not worth single feeding these rounds. And so, yeah, that's it. You can check the stats out. But I said I was done in video 12 with the BCA barrel, and I'm really done now. And so there's a new barrel coming, so stay tuned, look for that. It should be an excellent performer because it in fact is made by one of these two, and if you know anything about these companies, then you'll know which one it is. But you can see my level expectation for this round is things like this, where you're down in 0.5 MOA or even below that and things like that. So that's what I expect from my AR platforms when I'm done developing them, and this one is certainly not meeting after that. So out goes the inexpensive barrel, and in comes a pretty expensive barrel. Not the craziest expensive, but certainly more expensive, but by my experience, well worth it in quality and accuracy. So we'll do that, and we'll see you again.